A gunman in northern Idaho seems to have set fire to a brush in the wooded area in order to draw first responders to shoot at them, sniper style.
Breaking news tonight as we hear the chilling, distressing calls from an Idaho firefighter as his crew was ambushed by a sniper with a rifle while responding to a forest fire. Tonight, just in the last hour, authorities announced that the gunman is believed to be dead. 2 firefighters were killed as they responded to a brush fire and came under siege. Deputies were still being shot at by this unknown assailant hours later as they tried to catch whoever did this. Now, all of this happening in northern Idaho near the city of Coeur D'Alene.
I have a few questions, and the story might be deeper than anyone is telling you. Watch this. What's up, YouTube? Drill Sergeant here, and I'm not going to make light of this situation. Everything that I said in the beginning is actually true. We don't have much more information, but in case you haven't seen it, I want to show you the news report. But then I have a little commentary. I actually have context, history, and an understanding that they're not telling you, and it's going to seem like I'm making light of it. I am not. In fact, it's the opposite. Before we get there, watch this.
Multiple firefighters have been shot in Idaho and at least 2 people are dead. This is happening in Coeur D'Alene at Canfield Mountain, a park with hiking and bike trails. This is right on the border between Washington State and Idaho. Officials say firefighters were responding to a brush fire, and officials just had a press conference a little while ago where the sheriff said law enforcement officers are still actively taking rapid sniper fire. I want to bring in CNN's senior law enforcement analyst and former Washington, D.C. police chief Charles Ramsey and former Boston Police Commissioner Chief Ed Davis. Chief Davis, I want to start with you because, look, still a very much active scene. They're saying they're taking active sniper fire. They believe it is coming in rapid fire as well. Can you just talk to me about how you are assessing what we know so far from this situation?
Hi, Owen. Certainly. This is sort of a police department's worst nightmare. You have someone in a heavily wooded area, and they're a distance away from any populated locations. So you have to move assets into the area to respond to the threat. You really need to have air assets and the ability to move in what essentially are ground troops to go after something like this. This is more a military operation than the typical police SWAT response that we're used to.
And Chief Ramsey, just on that point, trying to bring in additional resources, what are the conversations like right now if you are the local police chief, you're the local sheriff, and you are trying to get additional resources in? What are you calling in? What helps in a situation like this?
Well, jurisdictions train together and they have mutual aid agreements. This is close to the border near Washington, so I'm sure they probably have reached out that far to try to get some additional assets. You have federal agencies that are responding, so they're going to have a lot of assets available to them. They'll be using air assets, they'll be using ground, they'll be using dogs, they'll be using everything at their disposal.
And Chief Davis, look, a shelter-in-place order is in effect, but I can imagine some of the major considerations here when you're trying to secure a scene is also trying to make sure the scene doesn't spill over into civilian areas, into residential areas, trying to sort of contain, I guess, that level of danger. What are those conversations typically like at this stage in an incident like this? And I guess, where do you start on that front?
Well, it's very similar to things that we've seen in the past. And one of the big issues, as Chuck said, bringing in air assets for command and control could be an extremely important part of this. I've seen a helicopter on scene already.
Now that's funny. Not funny, haha. Funny, interesting. We just saw the man say that he saw one helicopter there and they're importing air assets from other states or other counties. Now, let's preface this with the fact that in the past 3 days, my lights have went out at least 3 times. The reason why is because all of the money that's spent from our taxes goes to buying helicopters and drones and military equipment for the police here. Okay, fine. In my county, they spent all of their money on helicopters and drones, none of it on the infrastructure, but to be fair, there's a lot of black people here. To be fair, there's a lot of black people here. So you need that, right? But I was under the impression that every law enforcement office was getting this sort of an upgrade. It turns out that's not the case, and that's unfortunate. Maybe what we need is more black people in Idaho. Maybe then they would have had multiple drones and helicopters ready to go. So let's explore this. First of all, take a look at this scroll. What city was this? Northern Idaho? Idaho is big, and the north part of it is half as big. There's a north and a south. Anywhere else, they tell you the city, the county, something. Look at this. One, there's Coeur D'Alene there. That's the city. Another one. Just northern Idaho, northern Idaho. There's one. Northern Idaho, northern Idaho. And then it just stops. Northern Idaho, something else. Two things are funny to me. One is, why do I remember that name, Coeur D'Alene? And two, why aren't they saying the city where this is happening? And then it came to me, YouTube. Last year, according to the Salt Lake Tribune, Gonzaga had to receive an NCAA waiver to put the Utes and UC Irvine basketball teams in Idaho outside of the suggested radius for a host site, because the host site, Coeur D'Alene, was full of hate groups that have never left since the 80s, or the 70s actually. Neo-Nazi groups, white supremacist groups. It's funny that they're not naming the name because they don't want that to be the headline. I know, we don't know who did it, but I do know that if it was in, let's say, some county that's mostly black in the middle of Mississippi or Georgia, that name would have been there. Maybe Memphis, Tennessee. Have you heard that name come up a lot? Yeah. Oh, yeah. It turns out that Coeur D'Alene had the founder of the Aryan Nations there. In 2004, they used to hold an annual world conference of the KKK and neo-Nazis and Klansmen. It turns out that that place has never changed. Even black basketball stars from universities aren't safe. Now, I was under the assumption that the reason why we spent all of our money, not on electricity, the power grid, or infrastructure for my city, but on drones and helicopters, was because there was a reason, was because there was some sort of historical, let's just say, assumption. I would think that if you have a history that goes from 1970-something all the way to 2024, last year, of white supremacists in your neighborhood, that you might be preparing there too. Now, it is very unfortunate that firefighters died because some crazy person that we don't know who they are or what group they belong to, make that clear, killed somebody, started a brush fire, seemingly, and destroyed human lives. I'm wondering how we could have prevented this. For instance, where there's heavy gang activity, those police get extra resources. Or wherever there's heavy black people in every state, every county in America, the police get heavy resources. But why, YouTube? Why then were there no drones, no extra helicopters when in 2024 we saw the resurgence of this white nationalist response, these gangs of violent, hateful people? Well, not just 2024. I know, that's just a one-time thing. You're wrong. 2022, hate makes a comeback in Idaho. Idaho Capital Sun. 2023, the Washington Post. Christian nationalists are flocking from blue states to Idaho. 2023, Aryan Nations in Coeur D'Alene, Idaho, according to the Coeur D'Alene Press. 2021, KTVB. Extremist hate in Idaho, part 1 of 3. is just looking what I'm seeing here. Patriot Front, 2017, the Anti-Defamation League, 2010, 2009, 2008, 2004, and so on and so forth. Klan rally, neo-Nazi rally, hate groups arrested, flocking from blue states, all the way back to 1983, Aryan Nations World Congress. So, maybe in order to catch a shooter like this, and instead of having to import air assets and helicopters, maybe you should have just had more black people there. Then you would have had the resources you needed to catch someone like this. I think the spokesperson for the first responders in Coeur D'Alene pretty much let us know we should have had more black people there when he said this.
You know, we have seen some of these things in a urban environment where firefighters were in a urban setting, putting out firefighters during civil disobedience, getting shot at. I've seen that. I can't say that I've seen it in a rural setting myself, but I have seen it in an urban setting frequently where firefighters do get shot at in civil unrest. Yeah.
So yeah, seems to me like maybe if you had more black people in Coeur D'Alene, you may have had more resources to catch a heinous, disgusting person like this. Seems like a good idea to me. Hey, yeah, you. Before you click away to watch someone unbox a tactical toothbrush, let's talk about something real. Political Drain isn't just another content mill. We're a digital front in a very real war. Not with bullets, but with ideas, with action, and with solidarity. We pair urgent news with critical education. And we build community around actual resistance, not the hashtag kind. The kind that moves. But here's the thing. None of this is free. It isn't. Behind every video is time, labor, research, and some weird guy asking if we're going to pay the hosting bill. And yeah, some of that money goes to things we can't necessarily say out loud. If you know, you know. Let's just say our special ops aren't Call of Duty LARPers. They're people making real moves to protect, uplift, and organize. You're not just funding a channel. You're funding a resistance network in a world where capital still calls the shots. Unfortunately, in a system built on artificial scarcity, even mutual aid has a price tag. And if we want to grow, if we want to win, we need your help. We need your help. So if you've got even a few bucks to spare, toss it our way. It's not for ads. It's not for merch drops, but for people making moves in the shadows so others can do it in the light. It's just us and you. So fund the mission, fund the fight, fund the future, because nobody's coming to save us. We save each other. That's how this works. Follow us on all these things you see here, and our link tree is in the description. Maybe even get some merch.